So Donald Trump executed 11 suspected cartel members in international waters off of the coast of Venezuela. So what happened was he ordered a U.S. military strike on this boat. You're going to see it get blown up. This is the footage of it. There it goes. It's been blown up out of the sky. No proof, no evidence has been shared that proves that these were the people that Donald Trump claims they were. But these were suspected drug smugglers. These were not terrorists or people we're at war with technically, right? These are supposedly, allegedly, drug cartel members of Tren De Aragua cartel in Venezuela. And this boat was off the shore of Venezuela in international waters, supposedly, allegedly, headed to the United States full of drugs. And instead of what normally happens, which is the DEA goes and arrests, raids the boats and takes all the drugs and arrests all the people. And instead of doing that, Donald Trump instead ordered a U.S. military strike. This is the first time this has ever happened. This has never been done before. Normally, we actually take these people in. They stand trial. We actually collect the evidence that they were drug smugglers. We find the drugs. And instead, this is an unprecedented move that escalates this kind of war on drugs. I mean, we've been in this war on drugs for a long time. And this certainly has escalated the war on drugs to an actual war. So this is causing a lot of alarm and concern. A lot of people are calling this out, saying, hey, shouldn't there have been some due process for these people? How do you know for sure that they were drug smugglers? Do you have evidence of the drugs? Do you have evidence of these individuals being members of that cartel? Do you have evidence that this boat was actually headed to the United States? Like, what in the world? Where's the evidence that allowed you to just execute 11 people out of nowhere? Now, look, all of us want the drugs to stop flowing into the United States, right? I mean, I don't think any of us are thinking, yeah, it's fine, let the drugs just come flooding in. I think all of us are very upset about drugs flooding into the country. I think we're more upset about actual gang members flooding into the country and taking over apartment buildings or terrorizing American citizens. I mean, sure, terrorizing our neighborhoods. That is what we'd actually prefer to be cleaned up more than anything. Certainly, it would be great if Latin America, Central America could kind of get their shit together, quite frankly, and clean up the cartels and get rid of them and make their country safe. I mean, all of that would be great. But the question is the way to do this by executing people through ordering military strikes on them when it's drug smuggling? This isn't a even in a situation of terrorists saying, well, these are terrorists and we are at war with terrorism. And so we often drop bombs and drone terrorists. And oftentimes we end up blowing up civilians and children and women and kids on buses and wedding parties and people that absolutely did not deserve to be murdered at the hands of the United States or any other big empire just out of suspicion of being a terrorist. And many times we can confirm they're not terrorists. That's already a question of ethics. Should we be doing that? Should we be, it's like ridiculous we even have to ask the question, should we be bombing buses full of children? What do you think? Obviously, no. But the war on terror, this has been allowed and excused, often debated, because the terrorists were violent and dangerous and killing people. So the excuse is it's either us or them, and war is ugly, and a lot of times civilians and innocents get caught in the middle of war, and it's just unfortunate. But at least the excuse was, well, but terrorists are dangerous and they're trying to kill you. They'll behead you. They'll murder you in a very frightening way. They'll cut your head off with a spoon. That's something extremely frightening. So do you want that? And everybody said, no, I don't want that. And so then we say, okay, then we're going to go ahead and use actual lethal force on these people and kill them. But when it comes to drug smuggling, yes, drugs kill people, but it's different. And we don't typically allow for lethal force when it comes to rounding up drug dealers. We don't say it's justified to shoot and kill them or justified to bomb them. So this is raising a lot of questions. Is this the direction we want to go in when it comes to the war on drugs? Are we going to be that country that if we just suspect you, because these people they didn't get their due process. They didn't get any of that, right? Their boat was just blown up. We don't have any evidence. The White House has not provided any evidence that these were actual drug smugglers, that these were actual members of Tren De Aragua, that there was drugs on board this boat. We don't have any evidence of this. So are we comfortable with this new level of war on drugs and allowing the government to just murder people that they suspect of drug dealing. Is that the direction that we're going to go in as a society? That we will just drone drug dealers rather than giving them due process, throwing them in jail? Is it a death sentence to be smuggling drugs, if you could even prove it? But in this case, they're not even proving it. They're just saying, well, they're suspected and we blew them up, and that's that, and you don't get to question it. I mean, I don't know if that's exactly indicative. Is that the way a free nation, a democracy behaves, where we just execute people without any evidence, and we just say, well, we think that you were suspected, cartel. We think you were in a cartel, so that's why you deserve to be blown up. Normally, the DEA would raid the boat, take the drugs, arrest the people. They would face consequences, and that would be the normal way of going about this. The boat gets to the United States shores, DEA raids it. The boat, we see the drugs, the evidence is taken to court. These drug smugglers then get thrown in jail or whatever happens to them. But that is not what happened this time. Instead, they decided to blow up the boat. Now, Trump is kind of equating this to Maduro, saying that, well, Maduro and the Venezuelan government is behind all of this. They're behind Tren De Aragua. This is an act of war. It's hostile. And these were just these cartel members, and were essentially at war with Venezuela, apparently. And so that's part of the justification. Donald Trump did say, he announced that he had blown up this boat. He said earlier this morning, on my orders, U.S. military forces conducted a kinetic strike against positively identified Tren De Aragua narco-terrorists in the Southcom area of responsibility. TDA is a designated foreign terrorist organization operating under the control of Nicolas Maduro, responsible for mass murder, drug trafficking, sex trafficking, and acts of violence and terror across the United States and Western Hemisphere. The strike occurred while the terrorists were at sea in international waters, transporting illegal narcotics, heading to the United States. The strike resulted in 11 terrorists killed in action. No U.S. forces were harmed in this strike. Please let this serve as a notice to anybody even thinking about bringing drugs into the United States of America. Beware. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, I have to say, I'm going to be honest. Our nation drones people all the time, and it's awful, right? And a lot of times civilians and innocents get caught into that. But I would much prefer, not that I prefer any of it, but I would much prefer that the United States drone drug dealers. I hesitate to even say this, but if we're going to conduct war and we're going to be droning and we're going to be doing this, right now we've been doing this for how long in the Middle East, in areas that have no real impact on Americans. I know they brainwashed us into this whole notion that it impacts us, that it's either us or them, that these terrorists are going to somehow come all the way over from the Middle East and get us, when really the acts of terror against us are because we're over in the Middle East. If we just left the Middle East, we wouldn't have all these acts of terror against the United States. But we don't really have that many. But, we've been waging all this war, lethal war in the Middle East over these acts of terror that we all know really just benefit Israel and not the United States at all. I would much rather we focus that on things that actually impact the United States. And quite frankly, the drug smuggling into the United States and these cartels coming in from, and gangs, violent gangs and cartels coming in from Central and South America, they impact the United States. So if I had to choose and say, okay, we're going to wage a war, are we going to wage a war on these narco-terrorists, or are we going to wage a war on these terrorists in the Middle East on behalf of Israel? I would much rather we wage war on the narco-terrorists. I would much rather that, rather than invading countries in the Middle East on at the behest of Israel, we instead actually invade. I'm not calling for an invasion of any kind, but I would much rather, if I had to choose, that we invade, let's say Mexico, for example, in order to clean up the cartels. That actually benefits Americans. That actually benefits America. For us to have safe neighbors, for us to have neighbors next to us that aren't bringing in a bunch of drugs and gangs and cartels and crime, that actually benefits the average everyday American, unlike all of these wars we've been waging in the Middle East. So if we were going to pick a fight, and I understand Donald Trump is now doing something that has never been done before. We've never used lethal force on drug dealers like this. Yes, if it gets to a shootout or if things become violent, then of course, sometimes things can end deadly. But we've never just droned a boat like this. This has never been done before. And so there's a lot of criticism. Trump is now escalating. He's suddenly a big warmonger, and now he's waging the war on drugs, and he's actually taking it to a level that even George Bush didn't take it to. But again, if you're going to criticize the guy for starting a war, this is a better war to start, in my opinion, than all the wars that all of these other leaders start. So if Donald Trump is going to finally start a war, then a war against the narco-terrorists, I suppose, is a war that actually benefits Americans. Not that I'm advocating for it. I'm not. I certainly think that people deserve their due process. Show us the drugs on the boat. Show us who these people were. Ensure that they were actually cartel members. Could you imagine you're just on a boat, your boat is going someplace and in international waters, and you get droned by the United States, and their excuse is, well, because we think you were a cartel member and you weren't, and we think you have drugs on your boat and you didn't, and really you're just like a freedom flotilla heading to Gaza to give humanitarian aid. You're just sailing around the world, and they just drone you. They don't like you. They don't like your opinions. And they're able to just drone you and say, well, we suspected you of having drugs on your boat, and we think that you were smuggling and you were going to end up in the United States. I mean, that's absurd. This is certainly not a precedent we want set. This is certainly not the direction we actually want to go in. We certainly do want to fight the war on drugs. Certainly, many of these people are dangerous, and if it ends in lethal force, it ends in lethal force. But I don't know if this is exactly the direction that we should be going in as a free people, as a democracy, as a beacon of light and freedom in the world. I'm not sure if this is. But I'm open to thinking about this more and kind of assessing it a little bit more and thinking, is this really a direction? Is this necessary? If you could prove it's necessary, then I suppose that's the only thing we can do. I mean, if it's a legitimate war and it's going to be an actual hot war on drugs where we're actually starting to drone them, and you can prove it's necessary, then I suppose, I don't know, then I guess it's necessary. This is just quite shocking. I mean, I think many of us are shocked by it because this has never been done before. Typically, we just round them up and throw them in jail and use the evidence and give them due process. Certainly, I'm more for due process. But but again, this is a tough one. I certainly want South America and Central America cleaned up because it is affecting our nation way more so than anything going on in the Middle East or Asia. The administrations, including Donald Trump, have been focusing on Taiwan, Ukraine, Israel, the Middle East. I mean, it's just none of that impacts us. What impacts us is actually Central and South America and North America, keeping North America safe and free of all of this. So, it's a tough one. I certainly would like, I understand that maybe this harsh going after them, maybe it'll work. Maybe this will deter any other drug smugglers from taking a boat up to the United States. Now that the U.S. has crossed this line and is willing to drone your ass, maybe somebody might be thinking, I don't know if I want to be on the next boat to the United States full of drugs. So maybe it'll work. I don't know. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think? Email me, kim@kimiverson.com, or tweet at me @KimIversonShow. There have been some other Twitter accounts out there that are faking it. They're not me. So tweet at me, email me. I'm just curious your thoughts on this one as I try to put together my own thoughts on this. Shocking. Is it necessary? I don't know. I mean, nothing else has worked, obviously. Can we just figure out a way to close our borders and not have to kill a bunch of people? Is that possible, that we just protect the sovereignty of our nation and we don't need to go and wage war? I mean, and obviously a lot of this feels like Donald Trump just wanting to wage war with Maduro, and that this is just another step towards grooming the United States population into accepting war with Venezuela. If he's blowing up boats in international water, claiming that they're Tren De Aragua and that they are connected somehow to the Maduro government in Venezuela, and people start seeing this over and over, it's allowing military action to happen towards Venezuela that only allows for an escalation really at Venezuela that results in a coup. So this sounds, the fact that this has never been done before and suddenly it's being done when they put a bounty on Maduro's head, essentially. They've sent a bunch of military people down to Venezuela like they're about to wage war. It's being surrounded by vessels. And now this happens. This feels like just another step toward war with Venezuela, a step towards trying to topple the Maduro government. That's what it feels like, rather than actually it being about drug smugglers and cartels. So, I mean, is this just another act of war? Are we just kind of working our way towards that actual war where they're going to put in Who is it? Juan Guaido. I think they gave up on that guy, but maybe he's still waiting in the wings to be put in as the leader of Venezuela. It's just very kind of a freaky thing that's gone on. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Kim at KimIverson.com or at Kim Iverson Show on X. Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.